Hello, my name is Pambos Anastasiou. I'm a researcher at the University of Cyprus. I have some experience with startups in my previous career, and I would like to take you through some steps for how to create the business plan. Okay. You can use the templates that we have sent to you. That will make your life easy. It contains some of the most basic sections for any business plan. And we would start with a title for the project or the company. If it is a project that you'll be doing, for example, that wants to license something and maybe it's not a company, you just put in the title of the technology that you will be developing. Okay. If you have a company in mind, you can come up with a name for the company, even though it's not registered yet. You can put it here. Okay. So that's the first page. Then we'll go through a table of contents. I would say that the first thing that people see is the executive summary. Actually, this is the last part you're going to read. You're going to write yourself, but this is the first thing that people read. Okay. And busy investors, they will typically read the executive summary. If they are interested, they will read the rest of it, or they would at least flip through the rest of the business plan. If not, then they're not going to read the rest of it. Okay. So you leave the executive summary behind. And now we go into describing what in section 2, what the company is, what is it's going to be offering. Then in section 3 is how would you get to this product that you're looking for. So this is the R&D section. This is the research and development section. Then the fourth one is a market analysis. Typically, this is where you would show that there's a big market for it. Okay. You understand the market, and then you understand what the customer is, and you are going to be able to have some advantage in being able to sell to this market. This is where the competition comes through. Okay. Then section 5 is some kind of financials. Okay. Where you would have to describe what type of revenue you're going to be making. Are you going to be selling services? Are you going to be selling software? Is it going to be a product? How many units are you going to sell? Those things actually go into this thing here, along with financial projections, okay, where you also describe your expenses as well. So this way you can show whether you need funding, whether you want to be profitable, what year you want to be profitable. They are typically done up to 5 years. But for this, I just put it out just for 2 years, okay? But most would ask for a 5-year financial projection. And the last one is the team. Okay, this will be the founders. Okay, it's not every employee that you're gonna ever have, but it are the founders of this company. Okay, so then let's go to the executive summary. As I said, this is a very important piece. It's typically 1 page, and it is describing the essence of the business. Okay, the most important things that we are these people, we'll be doing this, we're going to be entering this market, we'll be attracting this type of customers. This is actually where you want to make it as attractive as possible, because if you're successful in writing a nice executive summary, it draws the audience in to read the rest of it. Okay, so actually you would typically come and write this last. Okay, so we leave this, even though it shows us first, we go to the second one. Okay, so here you would actually describe the company, what type of company you're planning to build. Here you can actually go into the legal stuff. It will be a limited liability company. It will be incorporated in Dubai. It will be in, it would have headquarters in Egypt, whatever. Okay. You would also describe the vision. This is a company that is going to specialize in developing software for the medical industry, for example, specifically for training surgeons, whatever. Okay, I'm just giving examples here. Okay, so if somebody asks you what type of company is this, they will get the idea from this section 2.1, okay? If you have a company logo and a name, you can include it here. Maybe you can make a very simple company logo, okay? It doesn't take that much, okay? Now, section 2.2 is the problem statement. What exactly are you solving? This is where you will convince somebody that I'm solving an important problem and that there's many people that are interested in having this problem solved. Okay, so for example, you could say, um, you're making taxis more affordable. I'm just giving an example. You're making public transportation more accessible to the average person because you're building an application that shows them exactly where each bus and train is. And, this is very valuable. Okay, for example, or you're building a new battery for cars. Okay, so for electric vehicles, you have some new, that batteries are actually a big cost of the cost for an electric vehicle, and many people are upset about how expensive their battery is, and you have found ways to make the batteries last longer. Okay, I'm only giving examples here. Okay, but this is where you would just describe what problem you're solving. Okay, this is typically a couple of sentences, maybe a paragraph, and then you also show why this is important. Okay, you would say that it is, important because there's a big market for it. It's for government security. It's for, this is where you would try and convince that there will be a market for it. Okay. Then in section 2.3, this is where you would, describe why you believe your solution is unique. Okay. Sometimes this is called the USP, the unique selling point. And again, this is typically a few sentences where you are describing the core benefits to the user. Okay. It's never about yourself. It's never about we're unique because we're very innovative and we're based in this cool location and we have these degrees and all that stuff. Okay. It's never that. It's always about the user. What benefit does the user have from your solution? Okay. And then this is where you would actually give some more details about this solution. Okay. If you have pictures, if you have maybe a prototype, you can actually include it here. You can describe how it's going to be used. Maybe some other ones could use it. For example, maybe you give it to somebody who integrates it into another bigger product. Okay, you emphasize any features of this product. Okay, so this is where somebody reading it would understand what you're planning to do, what you're selling, what is it. Okay. Now here we go to maybe this is a more familiar section for most people, especially if you're in academia. This is the R&D plan. Okay, so you have a problem statement. You have done some work already. You have some technology, and now you want to create like a time plan to say that I need to do this and this and this and this in order to have a usable product. Okay. And this is where you would put in like maybe 5 or 6 major steps you need to do, maybe a timeline, a Gantt chart. It's up to you. Okay. But this is, what are the steps needed to be done to make this into ready for sale. Okay. So that's section 3. And then section 4 is actually, it can be very long and it can be very complex. Just like everything else here, you just try and do your best, okay? This is actually where you understand the market. It typically requires that you go and talk to people, that you have interviews and all that, and maybe you do some preliminary tests in the market. However, if this is not possible, you just go with what you know, maybe with some industry publications and maybe some articles. But you want to show that you understand what the market is, and you also have some convincing to others that there is a market, that this is not a very small product with a very small market, which is not going to be very interesting for investors. Okay, so this is where you would say what your target market is going to be. Okay, so this is you would say, for example, that I'm targeting surgeons that are involved in, this type of cancer, for example. Okay, I'm targeting large hospitals. I'm targeting companies that do installations of photovoltaics, for example. But let's say you're building a tool to make installation of photovoltaics easy. Okay, so you're developing some software that would allow these installation companies to plan the whole installation, what parts they need. So your target market in this case would be the installers. Okay, so again, I'm giving examples. This is what it means to describe what your target market is. What type of service are you going to be selling them? Okay. You also need 4.2. This is, I have to admit, it can be a difficult section, but you again have to do the best you can. But this will be what is the market size? Okay. So for example, this is where you would say that, for example, you would start in Egypt, for example, and there are 15,000 installers because you've read some publication, you've done a little bit of research, but worldwide, the market is this many. Okay, so you always want to show that you have an idea of what the market size is close to you, because that's where you're going to enter. Then you want to look, a little bit, surrounding area, to say, okay, we have good relationships with, for example, with this and this and these countries, so I should have access to that market as well. And then to look at the industry as a whole and see whether it's a growth market, and describe how much growth you expect. Okay, so you would say, for example, that this type of market is growing at 8% per year. Okay, so that's good. That shows that there is a prospect for it to be increasing in the future. Okay, then section 4.3, you want to look at how maybe you can break down this market a little bit more. Maybe it can be geographic. Maybe it can be, for example, by age. I'm giving this, for example, let's say it's a fitness app. Okay, so an obvious, let's say that you want to create some fitness app for these people that are trying to, gain muscle and be fit. Okay, so obviously, one way to break down the market into different segments, it's from age, because somebody who is in the age of 10 to 20 has a different kind of characteristics and goals than somebody who is 50 or 60. Okay, it can also be broken down by male or female. It can also be broken down between people who are just trying to stay fit, or athletes, or people who are very serious into fitness and they go into competitions and all that stuff. Okay, so that's what it means. You break down your market, and this allows you to create different strategies for the different markets. Okay, so if I go back to the example, if you have fitness between 10 to 20, Obviously things like TikTok are very important to that age group. But if you're trying to target and market to 60 and 70-year-olds or 70-year-old to 80-year-olds, then TikTok is not going to be very effective in reaching them. Okay. So that's what it means, market segmentation and targeting. Okay. Then the customer profile. Okay. This is where you kind of delve a little bit more deep into who is actually the purchase decision maker. Okay. This is very important because sometimes you know that your end user, for example, is going to be person A, but behind them, there is like a whole committee that makes decisions. Okay. This is it will be very common for very large organizations. So, for example, let's say you're targeting professors. You want to sell tools to academics. Okay. Well, there are usually committees that approve purchases. That's one thing to know. Okay. So if you don't know how to sell to academics and you just go straight to the professors and don't know the whole procedure behind it, you would not be very successful. If you're targeting, for example, hospitals and you're targeting surgeons, there are, maybe the surgeon likes what you're presenting them, but there are like whole committees that approve purchases. Okay. So this is what it means. Now, you might not know too much right now, but whatever information you have will be very good to actually put it here. Okay. Then finally here, and I have to make a big emphasis here, there's always some competition. Okay. It might not be a company, it might be a company that doesn't make exactly what you're making, but it might be a different method of achieving what you're trying to achieve for the customer. So you have to actually include that as well. It might be it might be a different company, or it might be a different method that they're doing it. Okay. But there's always competition. It's very difficult to believe that there's no competition. It's actually if you go to investors and you say there's no competition, they're going to be very suspicious, to be honest with you. So your job is to identify 3 or 4 key competitors, understand why they buy from them, and then position yourself to have some kind of competitive advantage. That's why you do this work. Okay. So this is section 4.5. Section 5 is the financials. Okay. I have to emphasize a couple of things here. The first one is to understand the revenue drivers. What would you be selling? How would you be selling it? Is it going to be monthly subscriptions? Is it going to be direct sales? Are you going to have um, uh, licensing agreements? This is where you actually put these things here, and you add some um, understanding of the different expenses that might be occurring with this. What is actually going to be your revenue, ways to create revenue? Okay. Then the second one is, which actually builds on 5.1, are financial projections. They are typically given in the form of a table, and actually maybe I'll bring it here. Typically, it's done for 5 years, but I just want to just do it for 2 years, okay? And I'll just show you what it is. It's nothing very complex. This can actually be very, very complicated and add many, many more items to it. But the typical structure is this, where you have the revenue, okay, which is going to be what you'll be selling by how many units. So for example, if it's licenses and you believe that you're going to be selling your software license at €1,000 per year, and you plan to have you think you can sell 50,000 licenses, then obviously your revenue for that year is going to be 50,000. Okay. Uh, so this is product 1, product 2, or service 1, service 2. no matter how many lines you have, okay, this is actually going to be your all the things that bring revenue to you, okay? And typically you do it per year, year one, year two, year three, year four, year five, okay? In this case, we're just doing year one and two, okay? And then you have expenses. You would have salaries. How many people do you plan to hire? You're going to have administrative costs. Here I'm including, things like rent, paying for internet, running an office, for example, or running a lab, okay? This actually is going to be the administrative costs. Marketing will be for things that you have to pay outsource, maybe ads on Facebook, SEO, search optimizations in Google, and so on and so forth. For example, digital marketing, non-digital marketing, you have a budget for it, maybe some travel expenses to go to conferences or to meet with investors if you believe that you have to fly outside the country, for example. And then equipment that you'll be buying, consumables for producing the product. This will be developer or outsourcing costs, I would say, if you believe that, this is actually very common for startups. Software engineers are very expensive. So typically you have them on a contract. It's very expensive to hire experienced software engineers to work for you full time, okay? And then there's obviously some founding costs. This is actually lawyers, accountants, registrations, all the different things that you have to do. And that's why I put it just on year one, okay? And typically you also want to you add all the expenses and then you want to add a buffer, maybe 20, 30%. So because it's very uncertain, you don't know what things are going to happen. So typically you want to add to all those expenses a 20% buffer. And now you have the total expenses for the year one and year two, and you have some revenue. Year one, you have nothing because you're in development. And let's say year two, you have 125,000 in revenue, okay? Now, this is actually where it gets very important, why you want to do this. Now you can actually see that the first year, you're going to lose 277,000 euros. The second year, okay, you're going to lose 140, okay? And this one actually includes, it's less because you have a revenue in year two, okay? Now, when you add the two of them up, okay, these two numbers, that's actually your gap. It's what you're missing. Obviously, you cannot run a business with negative money, okay? So this is actually what justifies what you're asking for investment. So in this case, it will be 277, 200 plus 140. That comes to about 400K, okay? It's never super accurate numbers to the last digit. But if you go to an investor and, you say, they would ask, how much money are you raising? You would say, I'm raising 400,000. Why are you raising 400,000? You will show them something like this, where you say, look, first year I'm in development. I need to be paying all these things. Year two, I would still be paying all these things, but my revenue is not going to be enough. So just to run the business and get to profitability, I need an investment of 400K. This is actually how you do it. And so you would have the template and you can work on the template, okay? And you would actually put in a nice table right here, okay? And then finally, you always want to give an overview of the team. Who are the key players? This is just the founders, okay? Maybe you can have short bios. Maybe you can put a table. This person, he's an MD and he has this skill set. If you have plans to hire new people, you can actually put it here. This is actually a very important section because um, this is actually one of the first things that the investors look. It's the executive summary and the team because they want to see whether this is a capable team or not. Okay, so here you want to show that you have the key skills in place to carry on this project. Okay, so typically maybe very short bios, maybe some roles and responsibilities. This person is the CEO because he has actually run other businesses before. And then you would say, okay, we need to, as soon as we have investment, we would hire a financial person, we would hire, you know, uh, an R&D engineer, whatever. Okay. So this is actually the last section. Okay. So with this, uh, I think that that covers it. I would say that what you want to do is that you want to do your best, fill out as much of these sections as you can, even though if it's just a few paragraphs, a few sentences. This is actually going to be a good exercise just to get you into the thinking, because a proper business plan can actually take months and maybe years to actually fully develop and needs a lot of coaching. But everybody starts from a basic one as you have right here. Okay. So thank you very much for your attention.